Hi there. For this shoulder rehab exercise, you're going to need a ball and a piece of resistance band, which you would tie behind you on a desk or a table, which you're sitting alongside. Now, this exercise is aimed at improving control and increasing range of movement into a movement called shoulder flexion, which is quite a limiting movement for a lot of people once you get above 90 degrees. So if you're rehabbing a shoulder injury, then this is a really good one to have in the locker. Pilates cannot lay claim to creating this exercise. It's a normal physiological movement, but if you apply the Pilates principles to it, it can really help you make sure you're getting optimal patterns established and reducing the chances of causing any further problems. So, as I just mentioned, shoulder flexion is taking the arm upwards, and the more it goes above this 90-degree angle parallel to the floor, the more problematic it can become for those who've had an injury. So we can use these bits of equipment to get a really nice controlled way of facilitating that movement. So this would necessitate that you're able to do at least a roll out in front of you with your arm on the ball. So first up, just check that that's not an irritable movement. Next up, we want to try and facilitate more shoulder flexion, but we want to do it in this fashion, which is called a semi-closed chain. So your hand is connected to something, but only half, because it's on something which can roll instead of being fixed and static. So once you've got out to this position, we want to try and increase the angle between the arm and the body. This is where we bring in a forward motion in our torso. Now, this is where the Pilates principles are really helpful. Before you go any further, ideally before you even start this movement, but before you go any further, your spine wants to be in a neutral position. So you've got that notion of the crown being pulled up towards the ceiling, the head is just set back slightly, chin tucked in, and you've got this awareness of fighting gravity. Now, the moment you fight gravity where you're sitting, your core muscles wake up. From there, it's visualizing keeping your spine in a kind of rigid form now as you hinge from the hips. So imagine somebody's pressing you between your shoulder blades to cause you to roll further out onto that ball. You see my hand coming off the end of the ball to denote that, but the angle of shoulder flexion has increased, and then we can come back and then draw the ball back in. So we're rolling out. Here it's very tempting to immediately bend the spine or to poke the chin forwards and try and get the roll that way. But we want to try and get these optimal patterns everywhere else while we're addressing the target area. So you roll out, keep that navel pulled in, keep that spine long. Maybe even thinking about somebody pushing you on the base of your back. If it's prone to just curving, think about being pressed here. And if you've got somebody to help you, you can even facilitate a push from behind just to guide you into where you should be going so that your spine stays neutral the further you go, and of course we've just spoken about that chin tuck as well. If there's any problems at all, if you notice discomfort, it can frequently be the case that the muscle facilitation in this area is compromised because of injury or poor movement patterns or movement disorders. That's where the band comes in. So the band can be used to increase the effort if that becomes simple and undemanding, but also if you notice any discomfort, simply grabbing the band and trying the movements with some more active muscle facilitation, courtesy of the resistance, can often switch off some of the problems which are encountered. Now, with again the Pilates principles of quality of movement, this really comes in when you've got resistance bands included, because if you're not careful, there'll be a jaggedy pattern forming. So try and get a smooth rollout, and for every extra amount that you move forwards, there should be that control, there shouldn't be any bounce. So you're looking for slow, intentional movement as per all other Pilates exercises, maintaining a neutral spine, and then working into as much shoulder flexion as you can with pain-free movement. So using those very common and important Pilates principles of dissociation of movement, flexing the shoulder with the dissociation of the static spine, even though it's moving forwards, slow intentional pattern, pain-free movement, you're going to find that you just get a greater deal of execution here and improved quality. So take those Pilates elements to this reasonably standardized movement of shoulder flexion with the semi-closed chain pattern, and it's a really nice one for improving and maintaining that range of movement in a shoulder that needs to be rehabilitated.